Hi everyone, we are now going to embark on the wonderful 9th Bodhisattva stage. And just as a reminder, of course, I got onto this ocean midway across, in the middle of the crossing, as a tribute to my old friend, Thomas Cleary, and who I consider the greatest translator from Chinese into English of our little younger generation than me, but sadly passed away ahead of me. And although he will continue translating, I'm sure, in other worlds soon, because he's obviously super driven to do it and super good at it. And this is a sort of unrecognized, unknown monument. There's this translation that he did of the Flower Ornament Scripture, as he calls it. And I'm just so excited and thrilled to be carried on the flow of it up through the first of the 8 stages of the Bodhisattva path, and then all kinds of sets of 10 preliminary stages before that, and then following some sets of 10 as well. And we are starting on page basically 777, very auspicious today, on New Year's Eve. And the speaker is Diamond Matrix, and Matrix is from Chinese. He's translating from Chinese, but this is originally Vajragarbha, the name. Diamond being Vajra, which is a Buddhist term always meaning clear light of the void. It's a wonderful term that comes from the Vedas in India, ancient India, Indo-Aryan India, and where it means a thunderbolt. It's a weapon of violence, with the king of the gods, Indra, in the old Vedic idea that he blasts with the thunderbolt the enemies of the people, or dragons or whatever, and then it's turned into a symbol of universal compassion, of reality itself, really. Of course, it is the universal compassion channeled by all enlightened beings, Buddhist or non-Buddhist, doesn't matter. But even without being channeled, it's this infinite energy that is the fundamental nature of the universe according to Buddha's science, as discovered by Buddha. Sort of an inconceivable thing, like infinite energy, which of course is paradoxical, as life is, because if you had infinite energy, if the ground state of all reality, life, death, whatever you want to call it, is a field or plane of infinite energy, it would be completely quiescent. Because it's an infinite, it has nothing to do. It's not a big black hole, it's not a pulsar, it's not an exploding supernova star. It's still, because those are things that are operating within differential energy states, where what seems like a super energy, like a supernova, and that's called in Indian science Kalagni, the fire of time fire. And where a world system explodes or something like that. Then black hole is like collapse, where everything collapses. And but those are things which are all differentiated, swallowing up all energy, pushing out all energy. But this is where all energy is always out, and it's complete in all places. So it has nowhere to go of its own volition, has no own volition. But because of its infinite plenitude, it supports any being that feels there's some difference between themselves and anything else, and needs energy. If they know that reality, it's like an infinite well that can be drawn on. And that was Buddha's scientific discovery, and why he announced, it's all good, after he had sought all over the place through his mind, through the instrument of his mind, and his brain, and his human embodiment, and all his past biological experience. And he found that as the bedrock, you could say. And then that's called the voidness. But it's not nothing. It's this complete, it could seem like nothing because it's not doing anything by itself. But it supports all doings of anybody, which in a way are kind of unnecessary. They have to do with people wrongly thinking they're not connected to all of the infinite energy. But they created a world of illusion, and then within that world there's a beauty and there's joy and bliss, and then there is misery and horror. And so anyone caught up in the illusory relative universe wants to make it nice for themselves and everyone. And the way they do is to discover their connection to that field. And so the Prajnaparamita Sutra collection, 18 of them that exist, of which are said to be summaries of kind of endless Prajnaparamita flowing around the cosmos from all enlightened beings, because there's not just one of them. And they're not creating any world, but they are giving that teaching. And that emphasizes the uncreated, the luminous, the freedom, voidness nature, emptiness nature of everything. And then with the implication of emptiness resulting in relativity of all seemingly created things. And then this sutra collection, it's 1,600 pages in the version through Shikshananda in China from the original vast Indian compilation with Tom Cleary translating into English. This collection is looking at that surface, at the inconceivable surface, but grounded in Prajnaparamita, grounded in the voidness, of course, grounded in the emptiness, because it enabled movement through the inconceivability, what's called the inconceivable liberation, which is a sub-name of this Buddha Flower Ornament Sutra, is accessible to anyone who has some degree of identification with this vast ocean of energy. And I was so thrilled. One of the things that I hadn't noticed in reading parts of this sutra before, I never really living that American busy life where you don't take time to read something 1,600 pages, except on a holiday. Like I only read Genji once when I had some sort of fever, like a kind of not malaria, but what do you call jaundice. I had some sort of a sickness like that. One January actually. Then I read the whole tale of Genji, the original form. Otherwise, you just read summaries. But anyway, I discovered in reading this that at the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva, at each stage of the Bodhisattva, that one who is on that stage in the exoteric long time frame of becoming a Buddha as a Bodhisattva, billion lifetime sort of thing, long evolutionary history. And in that sort of time frame, that the beings who reaches this and that stage tend to be reborn as a universal monarch based on generosity, because then as a king among humans, they have the wealth to be able to give constantly to their subjects, to the beings, to all the beings in their society. And the ideal nonviolent emperor that they have a sort of legend about, give in every society, not just your own. And then, like an emperor who everyone doesn't fight with, so they don't have to conquer anybody because they just have something so powerful about them by their evolutionary past. And then at the next stage, they are born in Indra's heaven, the ethics transcendence. And then in the patience transcendence, they tend to want to be born as the Indra king of Indra's heaven in different worlds, because there are multiple worlds always. And then they want to be born when they do the patience transcendence at the 3rd stage. They tend to be born in the realm of non-contention, of non-conflict, non-competition, suyama. And then a lot of the energy one and the meditation one takes place in Tushita. And it doesn't take place, but the teaching takes place in Tushita, and then the being who achieves it tends to want to be reborn as the king of the Tushita gods, the satisfaction heaven gods. And then and wisdom is the next level, the control of others' fantasies or emanations. And we're still there in the eighth stage, control of others' emanations. Right at the bound. Oh yeah, no, at the seventh stage. And then at the eighth stage, they tend to want to be reborn as a Brahma, as the king of the gods of the form realm, pure form realm, the pure material realm, where there's no gender and no sexual lust and no gender identity, wrongly described in the ancient texts as no, not this one, but yet I haven't found out, but wrongly described as no women. But obviously, if no women, no men. So no gender, actually, non-binary, the realm of pure form means, because there's no lust, sexual lust in that realm. That's fascinating to me. And I'm very intrigued. I learned that. I didn't notice it. And I'm very intrigued. So it's a way of fully respecting the gods, actually. No wonder the Buddha education system, which is basically what it is rather than a religion, although it has sort of spiritual byproducts and therefore generates religions, but it never attacks the theisms and the religions of the cultures that it serves in history, that has served historically. And so there you have, in the core of this sutra, you have a full respect shown to Brahma, the king of the gods, who the Indians of that time considered the creator, which he himself denies in the Buddhist literature that he actually created, but he does accept being the most powerful relative worldly being, like the king of the world, living at the summit of the world. But here the Buddhists are saying he's the very high level Bodhisattva. Always, the king, the head Brahma in any world is always a very high level Bodhisattva who likes to be a Brahma, because from the Brahma level they can accomplish many vows, meaning they can accomplish all sorts of transformations in the world that will benefit beings. Not a creation, because they would not want to ever create any suffering. And therefore no one is to be blamed for the suffering. Each one individually's ignorance, from the tiniest being to the biggest God, the sort of level of whatever misknowing, failure to be omniscient, failure to be completely aware of the uncreated, liberated, freedom nature of the infinite energy of the cosmos, the clear light of the void, as it is called. Anyone short of that full awareness, which is what the definition of a Buddha is the highest level of that, at a bodhisattvahood, where it becomes almost automatic and non-regressible. And automatic, that from there to full Buddhahood is just a sort of natural flow, because that being becomes open to the encouragement of all Buddhas to make some effort, effortless effort, because they're going to way beyond needing effort, because their awareness is already so huge. In the eighth stage of the vow stage, on the immovable, and in that sense they feel that they're kind of automatically everywhere in the reality of all the Buddhas, in the reality of the clear light, in the Vajra reality. But they are not quite capable of fulfilling their vows the way a Buddha is. And that will happen, but therefore they need to make some further learning effort, they're told. That's a summary of the stage it reached, which I just flipped me out when I was reading it. And now we're going to go on the ninth stage, which is the stage called sadhumati, which means a good attitude. Sadhu means really excellent or good. Mati means outlook, opinion, personality, mentality. So goodness mentality. It's sort of, I think it's more or less like Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. There is also Samantabhadra Buddha, but Samantabhadra Bodhisattva is in the same plane. The holy good, the all-around good, the goody-goody Bodhisattva. Okay? But we'll see how they connect this. Anyway, I don't know, I'm sorry. I just enjoy it so much, and I'm so happy to have made this vow myself, to read the whole thing, and to try to comment it to you, because so you will not make the mistake I did of knowing this book now for 25, 30 years, having it in my hand, and I even started to work on it with Tom. I did 10 pages with him with multiple language text. But then he'd carried it on, in Japan and all over the place. Well, I had other work. But I just said, I'm going to do that because he's gone prematurely as far as I'm concerned. So I'm doing his honor. And also I'd like other people to find it sooner. And since I've been doing it, I had an email from someone, a woman I think, Lori Lightfoot, her name, from California, who said that 20 years ago or something, she read it aloud just to herself 3 times, which took her 2 years. I'm just amazed. But I didn't do that. I just picked up things here and there. I loved it. I picked up things here and I defended it against different scholars who were annoyed because there's no footnotes and jealous because the whole thing, he did it and didn't want to admit his achievement. Silliness, competitive, jealousy thing. And now I'm going to just read, I'm reading the whole thing in this way. Please tell us, says Liberation Moon, who's kind of the moderator in this event of the Buddha being all over the universe on the day of his enlightenment, the moment of his enlightenment, teaching on all heavenly planes and every different kind of being. And although he doesn't speak that much in the first part of the text, the Bodhisattvas coming from other worlds celebrate him and they give the teachings. But they, in a sense, they are always blessed and empowered by him. So he's speaking through them all, in a way you could say. Diamond matrix, Tom, but as I said, Vajragarbha. So Vajragarbha and matrix really means womb. Garbha means womb. So I've been calling it Diamond Mother's Womb Matrix. Diamond Matrix Womb. This assembly is calm and clear, said Liberation Moon. Speak of the practice beyond the 8th stage, of the kings of the true teaching. That's the power stage. And it's a transcendence of power, and it's called sadhumati, excellent mentality, excellent mind. Diamond Matrix Womb said, enlightening beings who, by means of the mind which has thus reflected on the infinite possibilities of knowledge, are intent upon yet higher tranquilities and liberations, thinking of consummate attainment of the yet higher enlightened knowledge, entering into the secret of the Buddhas, ascertaining the greatness of inconceivable knowledge, purifying the ascertainment of spell concentration, extending mystic knowledge, acting in accord with the differences in worlds, cultivating the insuperability of the powers, expertise, and unique qualities of Buddhas, following the might of the turning of the wheel of the teaching of Buddhas, not abandoning the attainment of empowerment of great compassion, thus come to the 9th stage of enlightening beings. Enlightening beings in this stage of the good mind, sadhumati, accurately know the performance of good, bad, and neutral things, the performance of mundane and transmundane things, the performance of conceivable and inconceivable things, the performance of tainted and untainted things, the performance of regular and irregular things, the performance of things listeners and individual illuminates do, the performance of things enlightening beings do, the performance of things pertaining to Buddhahood, and the performance of fabricated and unfabricated things. All these they know as they really are. Thank you, Tom. Performance instead of practice. I love that. By means of this knowing awareness, they know accurately how all beings get into entanglement of mind, how they get into entanglement in addictions, entanglement in acts, entanglement in senses, entanglement in resolutions, entanglement in dispositions, entanglement in inclinations and propensities, entanglement in birth, entanglement in the continuation of habit energies, instincts, and how they get into entanglement in the definition of what is beneficial, what is not beneficial, and what is neither beneficial nor unbeneficial. All this they know as it really is. They also know the compartmentalization of mind of sentient beings, They accurately know their complexity of mind, the dissolution and non-dissolution and instantaneous action of mind, the incorporeality of mind, the endless, ubiquitous, all-pervasiveness of mind, the luminosity of mind, the defilement or non-defilement of mind, the bondage or liberation of mind, the creation by illusion of mind, the manifestation of mind according to the state of being. They accurately know hundreds of thousands of differences of mind. They also know accurately how far-reaching afflictions are, the endlessness of their applications, their inseparable simultaneity, their being the sole cause of the appearance of propensities, their interconnection and disconnection with the mind, their appearance according to the state of being in the continuity of births, their distinction of being in the realm of desire, form, or formlessness, the great realms of desire, form, or formlessness, the great blameworthiness of pride, stuck with craving, ignorance, and views, the continuity of the causality of physical, verbal, and mental actions. In sum, they accurately know the pervasiveness of activities, evolutionary activities, of up to 84,000 addictions. They also accurately know the goodness, badness, or neutrality of evolutionary actions, whether they are evident or not, their inextricable coexistence with mind, their continuity of fruition through accumulation in spite of their own essence instantly disintegrating, whether or not they have developments, the variety of differences in rewards of pure, impure, and mixed actions, the infinity of the field of action, the difference in holiness and mundanity, how what is produced in the present state is experienced another time around, whether or not actions are a means of release, and whether or not they are sure. In sum, they accurately know as many as 84,000 different aspects of evolutionary action, as well as how to skillfully ascertain their difference. They also know accurately the weakness, mediocrity, and strength of faculties. That means the faculties of beings. Their disjunction or continuity, past to future, their superiority, mediocrity, and inferiority, their inextricable coexistence with addictions, whether or not they are vehicles of liberation, sure or unsure, their suitability for guidance according to maturity or immaturity, their nature as grasping of appearances in the rapid disintegration repeated in the net of faculties, the invincibility of the overlordship of faculties, the difference in regressing and non-regressing faculties, their various differences of extent and concurrence. In sum, they accurately know as many as 84,000 different kinds of faculties. These are like the faculty of sight, the faculty of hearing, different kinds of functions of mind and body, You could almost say organs, you could almost translate faculty, but faculty, indriya is the word, indriya. And indriya, as in the name Indra, the king of the gods of the desire, one level of gods of the desire realm, indriya, this means that which controls or that which is to be controlled, controlling. So like your faculty of sight controls how you see things. Your faculty of smell, faculty of hearing, this and that. And then their internal mental faculties. And so this all has to do with this ninth stage then of good mind, of developing power, strength, bala. And this means that you are learning how to be a Buddha. It's automatically coming to you with the sort of whispered support of all enlightened beings, infinite numbers of them. So a lot of infinite support you're getting, and therefore it's said to be you're kind of effortless at this point. You're stressless in this highest level of development. So it's paradoxically because you're making effort to develop, but it's an effortless effort. It's not conceptually motivated type of effort. They also accurately know the weakness, mediocrity, or strength of dispositions, their disjunction or continuity, past and future, their superiority, mediocrity, or inferiority, their concurrence with addictions, their qualities of being vehicles of liberation or not, sure or not, the certainty or uncertainty of their maturation, their nature of being grasping of appearances in the swift dissolution repeated in the net of dispositions, the invincibility of overlordship of disposition, their persistence and differentiation, differences in extent and concurrence, in sum, they know accurately as many as 84,000 different aspects of inclinations and thousands of various aspects of dispositions. So this is so interesting, because this is based on this stage, wisdom, art, and vow, of where you're already aware of things, but you're deepening your attention to the detail of that awareness. And you're permeating like a giant CAT scan of infinity, which I know is not understandable. It's an inconceivability expression, paradoxical. But you're like a CAT scan of infinity, where your mind flows at every level of dimension and macro and micro level into the detail of everything, in order to give you the ability to interfere with any kind of negative workings, negative defined as workings of those things that cause sensitive beings. Sentient means sensitive beings to feel pain, to feel suffering. Because as a Buddha, you can't bear, as you feel one with them empathetically, you can't bear anyone to feel any pain. Because, and it's like you don't want to feel pain yourself. You have a kind of virtuality awareness, an illusoriness awareness of it, which enables you to expand the range of your empathy, because there's sort of a cushioning of knowing that it's not real in a certain way. It's not really, or maybe as my old great Mongolian Lama used to say, it's not really real. It's real, but it's unreally real, or it's illusory real. It's like, when you're all caught up in a movie and you're rooting for the hero and in suspense because the bad guy seems to be torturing and going to be destroying the hero and it's going to have a bad ending. When you're caught up like that, you're completely engaged in that illusion. But you can back off and you can know that it's not like you are being tortured, and yet it is like you're being tortured because you're so identified with the hero, you see. So it's real, but it's unreally real. It's inconceivably real. It's not really real, inalterably real, which means also inalterably. Illusory also means it's alterably real. It's impermanent. It's changeable. You can change it. You have the vow to change it. You have the art to change it. Now you're developing the power to change it in this ninth stage. They also accurately know, so we did this, and each of these, by the way, these sets of 10 things, weakness, mediocrity, or strength, disjunction or continuity in time, superiority, mediocrity, inferiority, concurrence with addictions, qualities of being vehicles of liberation or not, sure or not, certainty or uncertainty of their maturation, nature of being grasping of appearances in the swift dissolution, repeated in the net of dispositions, invincibility of overlordship or mastery of disposition, their persistence and differentiation, and differences in extent and concurrence. Those 10 things are like an analytical grid that the Bodhisattva in this ninth stage places over all of these different things. So brilliant. Evolutionary action, faculties, dispositions. And now they also, again, further, they also accurately know the weakness, mediocrity, or strength of willpowers of the beings, their disjunction of continuity, past or future, their superiority, mediocrity, inferiority, their concurrence with afflictions, their quality of being vehicles of liberation or not, sure or not, their certainty or uncertainty of maturity, their being grasping of appearances in the swift dissolution, repeated in the net of wills, the invincibility of overlordship of will, their persistence and variety, their extent and concurrence. They accurately know as many as 84,000 different aspects of willpower, as well as thousands of ways of thinking. They know accurately how propensities are born together with intent and mind. I like to use instincts here instead of propensities, but propensities, of course, instinct is a propensity, so it's okay. Born together with intent and mind, their connection with mind, their disconnection, division, and extent, their never having been uprooted and cast out since beginningless time. Their being incompatible, which is a way of avoiding worrying about origin, real origin. Endless regress is okay when it's not relevant to knowing the true nature And that knowing of the true nature is what frees you from suffering. So beginningless is ideal in that sense. It's part of opening to the infinity and the uncreatedness of things. It's sort of relative uncreatedness that it's beginningless, absolute uncreatedness being its actual nature. Their being incompatible with all meditations, liberations, concentration, trances, and mystic knowledges. Their binding of the continuity of existence in the world. Their activity of binding the mind since beginningless time. Their nature of manifestation of accretions in the realm of sense. Their being something to be quelled. Their presence or absence in the states of the stages of enlightening. Their being extracted only by the path of sages. All this enlightening beings know accurately. So they know the deepest level. That's really referring to the Buddhist psychology thing of where the unconscious is not, like in the case of Freud, an inevitably unconscious thing, like the main bulk of the iceberg that you'll never know, your conscious mind, but it will control you. No, the Buddhist psychology is you have to face your unconscious, you have to transform even your unconscious, and you can become conscious of your whole unconscious, and you can turn all those energies trapped in instinctual negative habits having become instincts over beginningless lives, you can turn them to positive use, to love and compassion, to wisdom, and so on. They also accurately know the variety of births, birth according to evolutionary actions, the differentiation of hells, animal, ghost. Pretas are not ghosts, but it's translated hungry ghost in Chinese, and from that we get that in English, but that translation the Chinese uses the word for ghost, but they're actually reborn that way. Ghost is like someone in the between, constantly, forever in the between state. What we mean by ghost in English, I think, fits with that. But anyway, he's come from Chinese. He calls it ghost, pretas, that is. That's the hunger and thirst way of being reborn, less awful than hell, and a little more awful than animal. Hell's animal, ghost, and Titan realms, humans and celestials. Those are the 6 realms. And gods, basically. Birth, celestials are gods, or angels are gods, you could say. Birth in the realms of form and formlessness. Translators don't like to use gods because there is this sort of thing still floating subconsciously, maybe subliminally in people's minds, that somehow Buddhism is non-theistic or anti-theistic and so on, which is a confusion simply because Buddhism doesn't blame a particular deity for the creation of suffering of the world. And they consider that everyone is engaged in thinking they're creating the world through misknowing. But that doesn't mean they disagree with the existence of gods, and therefore Buddhism is quite theistic, actually, in fact. Just not monotheistic, or you could say not creator-theistic. So those are the 6 realms. Birth in the realm of form and formlessness, birth in realms with thought and without thought, the sprouting of future becoming from the field of evolutionary action, the moisture of craving, the darkness of ignorance, and the seeds of consciousness, the concurrence of name and form, continuity due to ignorant craving for becoming, the beginninglessness and endlessness of desire for enjoyment, desire for existence, and the likes of sentient beings, and how birth is brought forth by grasping for things of the world. All this they know as it really is. They also know whether or not habit energies are active, infusion by impressions according to involvements, habituation according to activities of beings, habituation according to acts, afflictions, and customs, habituation to good, bad, and neutral customs, habituation dominating future courses of existence, habituation gradually becoming dominant, habituation in which there persist aberrations producing long-lasting addiction, substantial and insubstantial habituation, and permeation by impressions of seeing and hearing Buddhist practitioners, individual illuminates, enlightening beings, and Buddhas. All these they know as they are. So there's all this, there's dispositions, there's propensities, there's habit energies, because people are not wanting to use the word instincts. And but the deepest one is probably the one that we mean by instinct, vasana in Sanskrit, and tinct, meaning instinct, something that tinctures are deepest unconscious. It's an instinct. And the vasana means something that perfumes something, it relates to. They know, so it's a very good translation for it. They also know accurately the correct stabilization, incorrect stabilization, and correct and incorrect stabilization of groups of people. Their correct stabilization by correct views, realistic views. Their incorrect stabilization by unrealistic views. Their non-stabilization without either. Their incorrect stabilization by one of the 5 hellish deeds that bring immediate consequence. They're correct, killing mother, killing father, killing a saint, drawing blood from the body of a Buddha, and causing dissension within the enlightening community. These are the 5 hellish deeds that bring immediate consequence. The correct stabilization by the 5 religions. Notice suicide is not in that, but killing father, mother, or a saint are. And killing Buddha is not there because you can't kill a Buddha, but you can draw blood from an emanation body of a Buddha. And someone did that, so each one of these things comes from a particular instance, Their lack of their realistic stabilization by the 5 religious faculties or spiritual faculties, their lack of stability without either, their incorrect stabilization in the 8 deviations, their correct stabilization in the eightfold right path, realistic path, their lack of further involvement with either, their indeterminacy without either, their incorrect stabilization or unrelenting envy, jealousy, and lack of sympathy, their stabilization and correctness of practice of the supreme path of sages, and the indeterminacy of groups. Apart from both of these, they know all these as they really are. Enlightening beings who have attained such knowledge are said to be established in the 9th stage, good mind. Enlightening beings in this stage of good mind, knowing in a way sadhu, knowing the differences in sentient beings' conduct, undertake to effect their liberation accordingly. They truly know the maturity of sentient beings as well as their discipline. They truly know the teachings of the vehicle of the listeners, the teachings of the vehicle of individual illuminates, the teaching of the vehicle of enlightening beings, and the teachings of the stage of Buddhahood. Knowing all this, they expound teachings to beings so they may realize thusness. They expound teaching the transcendental, immanental nature of thusness. They expound teachings according to differences in mental dispositions, according to differences in propensities, according to differences in faculties, according to differences in inclinations, through approaching knowledge according to differences in spheres of action, through proceeding according to knowledge of all spheres of action, through proceeding according to tendencies toward enlightenment, according to disposition, through adaptation to the addictions, actions, and habits of the various states of being, through going along with the structures of groups, according to the application of whatever means by which liberation may be attained, by appearing in endless forms, by appearing in all worlds in ways congenial to the beings there, by knowing how to say everything, and by skill in ascertainment of all specific knowledge necessary for elucidation of the teachings. Enlightening beings established in the stage of excellent mind act as preachers of the teaching and preserve the treasury of teaching of the enlightened. In these enlightening beings, the unadulterated 4 special knowledges of enlightening beings are always operative. What are the 4? They are the special knowledge of principles, of meanings, of expression, and of elocution. By the knowledge of principles, they know the specific characteristics of principles. By knowing the knowledge of meanings, they know the differentiations of principles. By knowledge of expression, they know the unconfused teaching of principles. And by knowledge of elocution, they know the interrelated continuity of principles. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know the non-existent body of things. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the beginning and end of things. That's, a non-existent body of things mean the things in the ultimate reality. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the beginning and end of things in their relative reality. By specific knowledge of expression, they expound the teaching by means of interconnected representations of all things. By specific knowledge of elocution, they can expound the teachings boundlessly without destroying representations as they are. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know the present differentiation of things. It's really amazing. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the past and future differentiation of things. By specific knowledge of expression, they expound the teaching without mix-up of past, future, and present. By specific knowledge of elocution, they expound the teaching in each of the past, future, and present by the beginningless and endless light of truth. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know the variety of phenomena and principles. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the variety of meanings. By specific knowledge of expression, they expound the teaching according to the local language. By specific knowledge of elocution, they expound the teaching according to mental disposition and knowledge. So this question of principle and meanings, and also principle and phenomena, these are ways in Chinese that they translate the ultimate and the relative. So phenomena are the relative, and then the ultimate, like nirvana, emptiness, selflessness, etc., negations, freedom, those are principles. And then things are differentiated, illusory phenomena. Okay? So in a way, principle you could translate as noumena, actually, in a way. But anyway, so those are principles. And by knowledge of meanings, they know the variety of meanings. By specific knowledge of expression, they expound the teaching according to the local language. And by specific knowledge of elocution, they expound the teaching according to mental dispositions and knowledge. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know the skill of differentiation of direct knowledge of things without mix-up. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the arrangement of suchness by inductive knowledge. Interesting, you see, you get to suchness using conceptual things. Suchness, you experience suchness non-conceptually, immediately, non-dually, but you reach toward it using dualistic, conceptual, inferential, and rational means. That's inductive knowledge. By specific knowledge, that's really key, and that's so much a mixed-up point, because people just think they can just throw away their brain, their mind, and then just, focus, and then they're going to be there, the absolute. But you have to unravel the grid of conceptuality, the prison of conceptuality, using the skillful, embedded sensibility of conceptuality, than to reach the insensible, the inconceivable, the unthinkable, etc. You don't just paralyze your thinking, in other words. You go beyond it. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know, I did that. Yes. They know the arrangement of suchness by inductive knowledge. By specific knowledge of expression, they teach by demonstration of conventional knowledge without mix-up. By knowledge of elocution, specific knowledge of elocution, they expound the teaching by familiarity with the knowledge of ultimate truth. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know one indestructible principle in all things, the freedom of it, the emptiness of it, its freedom. By specific knowledge of meanings, they enter into realization of familiarity with the interdependent origination of matter and mind, senses, sense data, and sense consciousnesses, and the truths. By specific knowledge of expression, they teach in words pleasing and easy to understand for all beings. By specific knowledge of elocution, they teach by more and more endless illumination of the teaching. That is it. That's this own sutra. Also, by specific knowledge of principles, they know the variety of entries into the one vehicle. By specific knowledge of meanings, they know the distinctions of different vehicles. By the specific knowledge of expression, they teach without confusing all vehicles. And by specific knowledge of elocution, they teach each vehicle with endless illumination of principles. Also, by the specific knowledge of principles, they enter into action in accord with all practices of enlightening beings, practice of knowledge, and practice of principles. By the specific knowledge of meaning, again, also by specific knowledge of principles, they enter into action in accord with all practices of enlightening beings, practice of knowledge, and practice of principles. By the specific knowledge of meanings, they comprehend the differentiations of the teaching of the arrangement of the 10 stages. By the specific knowledge of expressions, they teach by presenting the path without confusion according to the stage. By specific knowledge of elocution, they teach each stage in terms of its endless aspects. Also, by the specific knowledge of principles, they comprehend all Buddhas attaining enlightenment in an instant. By specific knowledge of meaning, they know according with various differences in times, phenomena, and characteristics. By knowledge of expression, they teach by different utterances according to attainment of correct and realistic enlightenment. By knowledge of elocution, they expound each phrase of the teaching continuously for endless aeons. Woo! Also by knowledge of principle, they know action, evolutionary action in accord with all Buddha's speech, powers, expertises, qualities of Buddhahood. Great compassion, analytic knowledge, application, teaching, and omniscient knowledge. By knowledge of meaning, they know the 84,000 utterances of Buddhas according to sentient beings' mental dispositions, faculties, and different inclinations. By knowledge of expression, they teach the Buddha's sayings according to the differences in action of all beings. By knowledge of elocution, they expound the teaching by focus on the sphere of practice reflecting the knowledge of the enlightened. The enlightening beings who are thus skillful in effectuation of the science of these specific analytic knowledges, having reached the 9th stage, having attained the treasury of teachings of the enlightened, acting as great preachers of the teaching, come to attain the concentration spell, containing sort of magical formula, that is, containing meanings, the concentration spell containing principles, the concentration spell containing evocation of knowledge, the concentration spell containing illumination, the concentration spell of good intellect, the concentration spell containing treasures, the concentration spell containing vital energy, the concentration spell leading into non-attachment and non-obstruction, the concentration spell of infinity, and the concentration spell containing a store of various meanings. They attain countless millions of kinds of concentration spells filled by such spell formulae as these. They expound the teachings by countless millions of skillfully adapted utterances and unlimited adaptive means of eloquent analysis. By means of these countless millions of concentration spells as doors of access, they listen to the teaching directly from innumerable Buddhas of the 10 directions, and having heard the teaching, do not forget it, and also expound it with innumerable differentiations as they have heard it. They completely learn teachings from one Buddha through the mediums of countless millions of concentration spells, and as from one, so too from endless Buddhas. By measure of their will, to a yet greater extent do they receive the light of the means of access to the teaching, such as cannot be attained by the retentive power of greatly learned disciples who take up and hold what they learn even in 100,000 aeons. This whole thing of the concentration spell is, verging into mantra. It's going into the area of mantra. Thus, having attained the dharani, the concentration spell word is called dharani, which means a holding, a holder of a holding formula. Thus, having attained mental command through concentration spells, having attained eloquence, sitting on the seat of teaching, they pervade 1 billion worlds and expound the teaching to beings according to the differences in the mentalities of the beings. As they sit on the seat of teaching, their seat of teaching has immeasurably greater splendor than any, except those of the Buddhas and the enlightening beings who have reached the stage of coronation, the next one. Sitting on the seat of teaching at will, they make one utterance, causing all congregations to perceive it as various different utterances. At will, they convey knowledge by various different utterances and nuances. At will, they draw forth ways of entry into the teaching by emanating beams of light. At will, they emit voices from all their pores. At will, they bring forth voices of teaching from all forms manifest in the universe. At will, they convey knowledge of all phenomena by means of one utterance. At will, they make all sounds into the sound of the teaching. At will, they bring forth the voice of the teaching from the song and music of all worldly realms. At will, they draw forth all the different expressions of the teachings from a single syllable. At will, they but maybe not only from maybe from all single syllables. At will, they draw, it has to be from a vowel, of course, and a consonant. At will, they draw forth untold ways of entry into the teaching from each and every atom in the clusters of elements of earth, water, fire, and wind in untold worlds. Even if the beings of 1 billion worlds were to come up all at the same moment and ask questions, each of them asking questions with countless nuances, each one asking a different question. The enlightening beings would take in every tone and nuance, and with a single utterance would satisfy all those beings' minds. Even if the beings of untold worlds all came up in the same moment and asked questions, each with innumerable nuances, each different, the enlightening beings would take them all on instantly and edify them all with a single utterance. Pervading untold worlds, they expound the teaching according to beings' dispositions, faculties, and inclinations. Sitting in discourse on the teaching, receiving the empowerment of the Buddhas, they simultaneously face all beings doing the work of Buddhahood. All the more do they undertake the absorption of the light of knowledge in this way. Quote, even if on a single point there be Buddhas as numerous as atoms in untold worlds, teaching in the same immeasurable number of assemblies, each Buddha teaching according to the differences of all those innumerable beings, presenting to each being's disposition of mind an equally immeasurable number of teachings. And as one Buddha does in one assembly, so all Buddhas, so also all Buddhas. And as in one point, so in all universes. There we should produce a memory of such enormous extent and receive the revelation of the teaching at once from all the Buddhas without missing a single word. We should purify the ability to express with certainty such revelation of wisdom as will instantly satisfy all the beings in the aforementioned assemblies with their various groups, ways, and tendencies, as well as the beings in so many worlds. Enlightening beings who have reached the stage of good mind, becoming all the more single-minded in their focus of attention, day and night, entering the sphere of Buddhas, joining the company of Buddhas, reach the profound liberation of enlightening beings. Enlightening beings acting in accord with such knowledge never stop the vision of Buddhas in concentration. In each age seeing countless Buddhas, they honor, respect, and venerate them. With immense vision of Buddhas, they ceaselessly attend them respectfully and ask the Buddha questions. They attain mental command of the teaching and can expound it. This previous paragraph, I marked a page because it's so amazing. Because when our mind thinks infinity, we sort of go outward toward the macro. But in fact, toward the micro, there is an infinity of never reaching nothingness. Because there is no such thing as nothingness, except as a concept. And so there's an infinity of micro universes, so that the micro and macro become undifferentiated, actually. Because you keep taking apart, and in each atom there's infinite worlds, and in each atom of those infinite worlds there's infinite worlds, and so forth and so forth. And it goes on and on in the relativity, the illusory relativity, like that, infinitely, endlessly, into the micro. So it isn't like the micro has a set limit, which is some sort of nothingness, because there is no nothingness. So you even go micro there, and you don't have, there's no anti-macro and anti-micro. You never get to nothing. So in a way, there's nothing is not a boundary beyond which there's negative, just in numbers. It's as a convention linguistically, because you subtract things, for convenience of manipulating in mathematics. But in actuality, there's no black hole, in other words. There is no such thing as a black hole. What looks like a black hole to differentiated superficial awareness of consciousness thinking of everything as having its own intrinsic reality is simply going into the micro beyond the ability to conceive of infinity in the micro. Okay? So it's not like there's a hole where there's some sort of dense thing that then explodes. There's no such thing. It just infinitely goes on like that. And there's like beings in wonderful vast places. They're all in the micro level for beings relationally micro to the micro. All right? So we're just filled, everything's filled with life, is the point. There's no nothing. Except the realm of nothing that your mind goes to try to get a break when you become infinitely aware and infinitely spacious. When you're doing those seemingly disembodied mental one-pointed samadhis and ending up in being beyond conceptually conscious and beyond conceptually unconscious. And then that's an edge of nirvana, but not able to deal with nirvana because of thinking still it's somewhere else. And you're something else. Some last vestige of sense of separation is still there, even though it has the form, seems to have the form of non-duality. But it's samya neva, asamya. Samya is a conceptual way of knowing. It's not vijnana, jnana, adijnana, primal knowing. Because primal knowing you don't reach, because you already have it. So therefore it's endless. There's no limit to life. No limit to love, no limit to energy in the micro and the macro. And there's a micro in the macro and a macro in the micro. So that's so great. Or let me read it again in the light. All the more do they undertake the absorption of the light of knowledge in this way, quote, even if on a single point, and remember a single point, abstractly, conceptually, is a zero. And there's nothing there. There's no point there. But that's just because it's too micro to see any dot. But there actually still is a dot which has infinity in it. That's how they invented the decimal system. That's so wonderful. Even if on a single point there be Buddhas as numerous as atoms in an untold world, teaching in the same immeasurable number of assemblies, each Buddha teaching according to the differences of all those innumerable beings, presenting to each being's disposition of mind an equally immeasurable number of teachings. And as one Buddha does in one assembly, so also all Buddhas, and as in one point, so in all universes, there we should produce a memory of such enormous extent and receive the revelation of the teaching at once from all the Buddhas without missing a single word. We should purify the ability to express with certainty such revelation of wisdom as will instantly satisfy all the beings in the aforementioned assemblies with their various groups, ways, and tendencies, as well as the beings in so many worlds. Enlightening beings who have reached the stage of excellent mind, becoming all the more single-minded in their focus of attention day and night, entering the sphere of Buddhas, joining the company of Buddhas, reach the profound liberation of enlightening beings. Enlightening beings acting in accord with such knowledge never stop the vision of Buddhas in concentration. In each age, seeing countless Buddhas, they honor, respect, and venerate them. With immense vision of Buddhas, they ceaselessly attend them respectfully and ask the Buddhas questions. They attain mental command of the teaching and can expound it. Those purified roots of goodness of enlightening beings become all the more beyond compare, just as gold fashioned into ornaments, perfected by a skilled goldsmith, and put on the head or neck of a universal monarch, cannot be outshone by the adornments of all minor kings and people of the four continents. In the same way, the root of goodness of enlightening beings in the stage of excellent mind, well arrayed by the light of great knowledge, are so purified that they cannot be outshone by all listeners, individual illuminates, and enlightening beings in lower stages. The light of their roots of goodness shining on the mental tangles of afflictions of sentient beings put an end to them, just as great Brahmas of million world systems illumine the thickets and lowlands in all the worlds of the million world system. In the same way does the light of roots of goodness of enlightening beings in this stage of good mind, of excellent mind, shine on the mental thickets of afflictions and addictions of sentient beings and put an end to them. Of the 10 transcendent ways, transcendent power is predominant in those enlightening beings while they practice the others as best they can. This is a summary explanation of the 9th stage of enlightening beings called good mind, the full details of which would take forever to tell. Not that it wouldn't be fun to continue doing it forever. Most of the way, because we have been, Buddhas have been, most of the enlightening beings in this stage become great Brahmas of enormous power, lords of a million worlds. That's even a bigger Brahma. Then remember the previous 8th stage was you become a Brahma. You tend to want to become a Brahma of the Lord of 1,000 worlds. Okay? So now you become, when you have reached this ninth stage, by filling in the details, discovering the infinity in the micro reality, you now have want to become a Brahma of 1,000,000 worlds, because you can do so much more, although you're still not a Buddha. Million worlds, eminent, unsurpassed, seers of what is beneficial, masterful, able and strong in the exposition of the ways of transcendence of all listeners, individual illuminates and enlightening beings, invincible in answering questions according to beings' dispositions. Whatever actions they undertake, whether by giving, kind speech, beneficial action, or cooperation, it is never apart from thoughts of Buddha, the teaching, the community, enlightening beings, the practices of enlightening beings, the ways of transcendence, the stages, the powers, expertises, and unique qualities of Buddhas, and ultimately omniscience in all its aspects. Why? Because they want to become the best of beings, unexcelled leaders and guides, and ultimately omniscient refuges. With this desire, they exert their energy, by which exertion of energy they attain in one instant as many concentrations as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, as many concentrations, samadhis, that means as many samadhis, concentrations as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, see as many Buddhas as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, and become aware of their power, shake as many worlds as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, go to as many Buddha lands as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, illumine as many lands as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, mature as many beings as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, abide for as many aeons as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, penetrate as many aeons past and future as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, ascertain as many ways of entry into the teaching as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, and manifest as many bodies as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands, manifesting each body accompanied by as many enlightening beings as atoms in countless millions of Buddha lands. Beyond that, enlightening beings with the power of vows, performed by the excellence of their vows, countless transformations of the body, aura, mystic powers, vision, sphere of action, voice, conduct, adornment, power, resolution, and performances. Then diamond, matrix, womb spoke these verses describing this stage, contemplating with innumerably powerful intellect, with very subtle knowledge, atom-splitting knowledge, thus entering into the abode of the secret of Buddhas. They reach the ninth stage, benefactors of the world. Their mental command and concentration are great. Their far-reaching mystic knowledge enters all lands. With certainty of knowledge and power, this is the abode of steadfastness of the conquerors. The wise with commitment and compassion enter this ninth stage. Those who have reached this stage, holders of Buddha's treasury, know what is good, what is bad, and what is neutral, what is tainted and worldly, and what is transcendent, what is conceivable and what is inconceivable. They examine what is certain and what is uncertain, and foster their practices accomplishing the three vehicles, teachings of the stages according to inclinations and conduct. They prepare and enter the world accordingly. With superior subtle intellect following such knowledge, they search out the mental tangles of sentient beings. They search out the various tangles of mind and comprehend who can be taught what the end and the beginning are. They comprehend beginningless addictions in their interrelatedness of application, as well as the continuity of their sources through compulsive propensities and in terms of the various differences in process of action and the vanishing of effect with extinction of cause. They comprehend which faculties are weak, middling, and strong, and continuity between past and future, inclinations of various kinds, and whether or not they are pure. They comprehend all 84,000. Worldly beings are developed into different dispositions, gone into the tangles of addictions and views, beginningless, endless, never cut off, continually bound up with the mind. born together with and stuck to inclinations and propensities. Those inclinations and propensities are not real things. They have no location and are not apart from mind. Hard to know, unconquerable by the states of meditation. They can be cut off only by the diamond thunderbolt of the path. Entering the variety of the 6 courses of migration of life, craving being the moisture, ignorance the shade, action, evolutionary action the field, consciousness the seeds, name and form the simultaneous sprouts. Thus do they see beings in the world beginningless and endless. Those beings' minds are full of the action of afflictions, addictions, according to patterns of habit. Apart from this, they have no desire for further continuation of transmigration. The enlightening beings know who are stabilized in truth, in error, and indeterminate. Who are those stuck in views, sunk in views, and who are those with knowledge. With these reflections stationed in this stage, enlightening beings reveal the teaching in different ways, according to people's dispositions, faculties, and inclinations, versed in analytic knowledge, meanings, elocution, and expression. They are in the position of preachers of the teaching, like lions, like bulls, like majestic mountains. They shower the sweet rain of the elixir of immortality, just as the water spirits fill the sea. Skilled in seeking out meanings as well as the essence of things, comprehending all expressions, they have mastered elocution, having attained countless millions of decades of concentration spells. They hold the teachings as the ocean holds the rain. Thus, having attained concentration by purification through spells, they see thousands of Buddhas in one instant, and having gained the treasure of the teaching, they expound it, reaching each and every sphere with its purifying sound. They set the various beings of the billion worlds free by means of the 3 treasures, satisfying all according to their faculties and dispositions, like water spirits filling the ocean, with even the Naga dragon, water spirits filling the ocean. With even greater virtue, they exert their energy and think how there are, in a minute point, unthinkable numbers of Buddhas teaching, and various beings hearing the teachings. They hold them as the earth holds seeds. As many beings as there are in the 10 directions, all sit in a single circle of assembly, appearing to them all in a single instant. Enlightening beings will satisfy them all with a single utterance. Stationed here, masters of the teaching, highest of humans and gods, they become children of Buddhas, moving by the teachings. Day and night they are in the company of the Buddhas, established in profound tranquility, firm in knowledge and liberation. They attend millions of Buddhas and become purified like the adornment of a monarch. Their light overcomes the obscurities of afflictions and addictions like the light of Brahma, illuminating a million worlds. In this stage they become Brahma gods, imbued with virtue, and satisfy beings with the teachings of the 3 vehicles. What they undertake is for the benefit of all beings. Following enlightened knowledge, they attain virtue and knowledge. In a single instant, they attain as many concentrations as atoms in immeasurable lands, steadfast. Seeing the Buddhas of the 10 directions, they hear the teaching, and beyond that, by willpower, they work innumerable miracles. Thus has been told the 9th stage of those contemplating great knowledge, profound, hard to see, subtle. The 9th stage of enlightening beings called excellent mind. Thus, having heard of unsurpassed practice, millions of goddesses of the pure abodes, gods and goddesses of the pure abodes were delighted. They stood in the sky, their senses enraptured, and paid honor to the Buddha. Endless millions of enlightening beings hovering in the sky were gladdened. They burnt clouds of incense, incomparably delightful, destroying the addictions of the world. The king of the heaven of power, pleased, was in the sky with a retinue of trillions, all respectfully showering vestments, beautiful, excellent, by the hundreds. Many goddesses, their senses delighted, honored the Buddha respectfully, playing millions of musical instruments, uttering such words as these. King of the heaven of power. I'm not sure who that would be, beyond Brahma, but it must be Vajradhara, actually. Heaven of power. So Vajrapani or Vajradhara has to be that. So it's like that's when there are 17 heavens in the realm of pure form. And that's right at the event horizon of infinite space. And it's sort of on the crown head of the Brahma, of great mighty Brahma, Brahma Shikin, crowned Brahma. So on his head is a 17th realm called the realm of pure pure abodes. And of course, then there are infinite pure abodes even there, you see, right at the event horizon of going infinite, the experience of infinite space. So of going infinite there, the mental, physical thing, going beyond form realm into formless, just there has to be that in rapture space. And that, I think, that is where the arhats and the individual illuminates in the Abhidharma kind of organizations, the Mahayana Abhidharma organization, that is where they are. And that is sort of their way of tasting nirvana. So they're kind of similar to this ninth stage bodhisattva. But somehow they have to go back and fill in all this other stuff. And it takes them a long time, supposedly, but can't. Time is, again, our sense of long time is when we're stuck in over-reifying and overthinking of the sort of real reality of time. So they're really getting there too, but they don't explicate that because they want people to come in with the power of the compassion. So, okay, playing trillions of musical instruments, uttering many goddesses, their senses delighted, honored the Buddha respectfully, playing trillions of musical instruments, uttering such words as these. And here they're having goddesses again, although in the form realm, there's supposed to be no females because they're non-binary. But they can be trans into goddesses in this pure abodes plane at the very top of the form realm where anything is possible, where all the pure lands are, where Sukhavati, Abhirati is, so forth. And in those pure lands, it's like also space dimensions are warped, where in a way everything is in those pure lands for the beings in those pure lands. There's no distance, no hell is even apart from that. They're working right there on the hell, and they're releasing them right there. And there's no place beyond that for them, I think. The Buddha is sitting in one land. So this is the goddesses are singing. The Buddha sitting in one land appears reflected in all lands. Beside bodies of millions of varieties, pleasing, pervade the reaches of the cosmos. From one hair of the Buddha's light beams, from one hair of the Buddha, light beams emerge, annihilating the addictions of the world. The elemental particles of the land may be counted, but the number of those light beams cannot be known. Sometimes they show Buddhas imbued with supreme characteristics, turning the wheel of the highest teaching. Sometimes there appears the Lord of humans, pure and calm, with his most excellent, unsurpassed conduct in other lands. The guide is seen in the abode of happiness, dying there and so coming to earth. In the womb thus in millions of lands, or seen being born there in the land. The guide going forth for the sake of the world and becoming supremely enlightened, so turning the wheel of the teaching is seen in millions of lands. Just as a magician versed in the arts of magic shows many objects for people, so does the teacher versed in supreme knowledge show all bodies to people. Empty, quiescent, essentially signless, the nature of things is equal to space. The enlightened teacher, by ultimate truth, shows the exalted sphere of Buddhas. As is the essence of the Buddhas, so is that of sentient beings. found in the nature of things. Signs and signlessness are equal in that way. All things are ultimately signless. Those who seek enlightened knowledge abandon assumptions, notions, imaginations, aware that being and non-being are the same in essence. They will quickly become supreme human leaders. Having spoken thousands of such sweet words, the goddesses, looking at the Buddha, became silent and remained quiet. Knowing the assembly was settled, the fearless liberation moon asked diamond matrix, dauntless enlightening matrix, mother's womb, the dauntless enlightening being, tell us, in order, all the characteristics, qualities, and sphere of those who come to the 10th stage, as well as their marks and miracles. Okay, so now we're going to stop here. This is a little shorter than I tend to run on, which I won't do now. And we will dedicate this to becoming Vairochanas ourselves, Vajradharas ourselves, as soon as 9th stage Bodhisattvas ourselves, Buddhas ourselves, as quickly as possible, to enable us to establish all beings in the exalted state of being Buddhas, without exception, as quickly as possible. Thank you.